What's good, everyone? OJ here. Welcome back to another video. Today we have a discussion on a game that you should not sleep on that's coming out in a little bit over 2 weeks as of the time that I'm recording this video. But before we get into that, please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're someone new, click that notification bell to get my videos first. So let's go ahead and get right into this. And we're starting out with the reason why I'm making this video, because there was a delay of a semi-big game for the Nintendo Switch this year, and that was the Advance Wars Reboot Camp 1+2. That game made by Nintendo and WayForward is being delayed to spring 2022. That was a December game. That is a classic Nintendo franchise from the GBA and the Nintendo DS. There were a number of people looking forward to those remakes, so there is some extra room for a game that maybe you didn't think about playing, or maybe you're not really into those style of games. But just like Metroid Dread this year, there can be a lot more new fans of this type of game that's been around now for decades at this point. And that game that you should not sleep on is, of course, Shin Megami Tensei V. Now, like I stated, this game is coming out in a couple of weeks here, and I'll be having full coverage on the game, but pretty much anything that we're going to be discussing in this video is going to be based off of the history of the franchise and also what Sega and ATLUS have already shown. So there's no spoilers or there's no problems or anything like that at this point. This is going off of my own series knowledge and just discussing the game. So I think it's going to be pretty good. So let's start off by saying, like, what is Shin Megami Tensei V? It is a turn-based Japanese RPG that is custom made for the Nintendo Switch. This game was one of the first games actually announced for the Nintendo Switch back in 2017 at the January presentation, and we've been waiting on it, and it's finally coming out a number of years later now. 4+ years since they first revealed it, it's coming out. And I think the interesting thing about this game that kind of sets it apart from other third-party games, other exclusives on the Nintendo Switch, is that, once again, it is custom made for the platform. We have very few big third-party games that aren't ports or down ports or whatever the case is from other systems. So therefore there's some compromises, whatever the case is, whereas this game is custom made for the Switch using Unreal Engine 4. It is a very big and expansive type of game. Now, if you're not familiar with Shin Megami Tensei, think kind of like a more even demented or deranged Persona game. Persona is more popular. That's where you essentially are a group of people. You have your main avatar that you use, and you set out to fault or thwart some type of evil that is befallen in Japan or across the world. And that's pretty much the same premise here with Shin Megami Tensei V. However, they do things a little bit differently when it comes to just the flow of the game, playing through it. There's not as much of the social link stuff and kind of like the dating and the talking with your other people, whereas SMT is kind of more of where you team up with the actual demons to fight other demons and to fight other huge beings, whether they be certain types of devils or other types of gods or whatever the case is. So that's essentially the flow of Shin Megami Tensei, and it is fantastic. It uses a momentum-based system, so if you actually exploit a weakness from the enemy, you actually get an extra turn. You have 4 people, including your own main character that you can use, so 4 people total, I should say, and you essentially go through and try to exploit weaknesses and fight. And the coolest thing about Shin Megami Tensei V, what I'm loving and why you shouldn't sleep on it, is because the look of the game combined with the gameplay. We already know what Shin Megami Tensei V, or what the SMT franchise has proven over the decades in terms of great combat, in terms of just basic difficulty. It's a very challenging game, but it's very fun to go through. It has great dungeon design, great enemy design. That's stuff that we've always known about. But now you're pairing that with fantastic HD graphics, as the previous game, Shin Megami Tensei 4, Shin Megami Tensei 4 Final, those were Nintendo 3DS games, so they were not in HD in terms of the mainline SMT. Now, we did recently get Shin Megami Tensei 3 Nocturne HD Remaster, which was fantastic, but you have to remember, that wasn't custom built for an HD system. It was a PlayStation 2 game that they actually ported over to the PlayStation 4, the PC, and the Nintendo Switch, whereas Shin Megami Tensei V is actually a brand new game built for the Switch. And you can see the immediate benefits of that as soon as you watch any of the trailers that have came up, or as soon as you see any of the promotional material. It looks a cut above other RPGs that are on the platform, and to me, probably the most impressive Japanese RPG on the Nintendo Switch at this point from what I've seen. I think Dragon Quest XI-S is a very close second, but really so far from what I've seen, Shin Megami Tensei V definitely takes the top spot in terms of graphics on the Nintendo Switch. And like I stated before, the gameplay we know is going to be there. So even if you're not as much into the Japanese RPG scene, I think that SMT 5 can be a very good starting point. Atlus has actually made a few smart changes with this game based off of the information. So for example, there will be a easy difficulty mode and I think an even easier difficulty mode for you there. It's not just going to be the one difficulty like normal and then there's a harder difficulty, right? Because some people feel that the standard difficulty is a bit too hard for them. So I think that that's a very good way to get people to kind of ease them in. So if they're not necessarily familiar with the Japanese RPGs or with the momentum-based type of system that Shin Megami Tensei uses or the Persona games, then you can kind of ease your way into that. And I think that it's very important for it because this game, SMT 5, I mean, it has all sorts of magic. It has tons of demons. You have demon fusion. You have a variety of things that are going, and I think it can overwhelm some people. So you have to kind of peel it back one layer at a time, and having those multiple difficulties for this type of game to get more people interested in it is definitely a good thing for this game in particular. Now, let's talk a little bit more about what this game is going to do in terms of reception, because I think that that's the biggest thing that we've been seeing so far. I've talked about it on this channel multiple times. It's the Switch effect, how the game is going to do via sales. There's a lot of factors with this one. So I think that with this game, like a lot of other games that have came to Nintendo Switch, especially exclusives, the Switch effect is definitely in play here. What we've seen so far, any type of evidence with that, is that I think that GameStop did say that it was one of the most pre-ordered games. I know that it's definitely rising up on the pre-order list, but also that special edition sold extremely well so far. They had the Fall of Man special edition Shin Megami Tensei. It was like $120, and every single bit of stock that they had that initially came out sold out. Now there should be more, so I know some of you guys might want that or might be interested in it. There should be more around the time of launch in November, so make sure you guys look out for that. Follow the necessary people, Wario64, CheapED on Twitter. Of course, follow me on Twitter as well, and I'll be retweeting that stuff because I know a lot of you guys were asking about that in the comment sections, and I've seen it quite a bit when it comes to that. So that should be back. But I think that that is probably the first indication that things are going to go pretty well with this game. I remember back when SMT4 first came out, those special editions were actually pretty easy to get, but Atlus didn't make too many of them. And I know for a fact that they actually made more of them now at this point. So it does seem like the popularity of SMT is going to get a nice boost because it's on the Nintendo Switch. And I think one of the things that drives the system, once again, is that if you're an SMT fan, like SMT is a game that's really good to play kind of portable, lying down in bed, just relaxing. It's a turn-based RPG. You don't necessarily need to be up and attentive and have it on a big screen. I mean, you can play it on your Switch portable, on a Switch Lite or a Switch OLED or your regular Switch, and actually be just fine. I mean, the game looks beautiful from what I've seen. I think you'll be okay there. So I think that it's very important, like in order for SMT to get more popular, the Switch had to be the system for it, because you're going to get the people who love to play the RPGs portably from the Nintendo DS or the PS PS Vita or whatever the case is. You're going to get those people, but then you're also going to get the people who are the home console people that want to play hooked up to a TV. So I think that's one of the biggest driving factors of the Switch effect, is the united platform. The fact that you don't have to pick or choose one or the other unless you have like a Switch Lite or something, but you chose that Switch Lite, right? And of course, there's ways to get things going when it comes to anything with the Switch. So I feel that that's really important for the success of this game, and I think that's going to be one of the driving factors for it going forward. I feel that the gameplay, the reviews, I mean, that's going to be a very big thing as well. How are people going to react to this game? How does it stack up to Persona? How does it stack up to the previous SMT games? How does it review? That's going to be another factor as well, and I feel that it's going to do extremely well there based off what I've seen so far. The gameplay just looks great, the graphics look great, and I think the biggest thing here, what they've done with this game, is that the story seems more approachable, seems more relatable to what they've done maybe in a Persona sense than what they've done with previous SMT games. So I think it's a little bit of a combo or a hybrid of taking some of those aspects of what you'd see with the Persona from a story or presentation standpoint, but then combining that with the rawness of Shin Megami Tensei to make a unique but familiar type of story or gameplay flow or the cutscenes. So I think that's going to be a big factor as well, pulling over more of those Persona fans to pick this one up. But what are your thoughts on this when it comes to Shin Megami Tensei? This is just the beginning of my coverage. I'll be having more videos, more content on this game. But what do you guys think so far? Let me know in the comment section below. All right, guys, that wraps it up for this video here. Thank you so much for watching. I do appreciate that. Please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're someone new, click that notification bell, and we will see you for the next video. Peace.